Welcome to Heart Speak Podcast, episode 80, Staying Steady in the Eye of the Storm. Well, here we are in the balsamic phase of the moon, and any of you who are following the numbers of these episodes, I've jumped a few numbers to align to iTunes because they have a different numbering system and I don't want you to feel confused. But here we are. We are just before the dark moon phase. We've been here before at the balsamic phase. And it is an interesting phase, and I feel that it's now a case when I look at the astrology and we have all these planets going retrograde, which means there's an intensification of those energies. We're also in this balsamic phase. It just seems perfect for us, which is the ending of something, the completion of something, and often the intensity of the energy before we complete something. So as we're here in these 3.5 days, we're looking at grief. We're looking at an end of something. And I'm noticing that in the world and in my world and in people I meet, that we're passing through those phases of grief. And if you understand this, the first phase of grief is around numbness, denial, and often a sense of togetherness. We say the right things, we think the same things. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so... And it might be, well, I lost my job. Oh, I'm so sorry. And you think that, and we're kind of united in the emotion of loss. Whether it's a person, a job, a relationship, a pet. I mean, there's something that we all unite with. And we sincerely say, we're in this together, we're doing this together. But that phase, after a while, starts to thin out. And one of the things is that people start to go about their own business. I always feel that when I've lost someone and someone's died in my life, initially everybody's like, oh, how are you getting on? What's happening? I'm thinking of you. But after a few months, people have forgotten. People have forgotten why it is that you're grieving. And it's like, hey, how's life going? And you're saying, well, I'm still grieving for the loss of my mother. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry about that. It's just that we start to separate back to the lives that we've been leading or the way we've been. And I'm watching this happen because we not only are separating back into ourselves, in other words, we're in this together, we're all fighting the virus, or we're dealing with this and we're supporting the health systems. And then reality sets in. You see, that's beyond the numbness and denial stages. The reality feels that actually, again, maybe you've lost a job or lost something, life's not going to be the same again. And I think we're feeling that about what's been going on around the virus. Life isn't going to go back to normal. In fact, many of us don't want it to go back to normal. Maybe, you're saying, well, I don't actually want that phase of my life to be continuing, but I want this. But what's happening is that our normal life is completed, is finished. It won't be the same. That's grief. Grief is a transitional process that gets us to go from one stage to another. And we call it disappointment. We call it, where's my expectations? Why aren't things happening the same way? So they're the next stages of grief. Once we've gone through the numbness and the denial and the togetherness, we start to get angsty. We start to look at these next two phases, which are, who can I blame? And where can I get angry? And where did I fail? I either blame myself or someone else. So anger and blame are the next phases of grief. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing people get angry at people because they're not wearing a mask or they're not doing what they think they should do. Now, all of that may be very appropriate, but they're going overboard with this. And you remember I told you that Jupiter's is going backwards now in Capricorn, and Jupiter is about enthusiasm, but also mania. It's a manic energy. So I'm watching people put enthusiasm or exaggerated passion into something that they can do nothing about. And that's what happens. So that when we feel helpless, which is what many people are feeling, because we don't know what the outcome is, we don't know when it's going to happen, the vaccine may never come in, thank goodness, but when we feel powerless, we exaggerate those feelings we have. We have to shout them. We have to explode at someone. And I was out driving around where I live, and usually people are fairly good at following the speed limit because we go from one traffic light to another. And people were kind of bursting past me just to get to the next traffic light. And then I'd catch up with them and then they'd burst away again. And I thought, where are you going? We're not working. We're still on lockdown. What's this essential race to get somewhere? And it's that feeling of, where do I return to the power that I had? I need to show I'm in control so I can go faster and I won't obey any rules. And that's Jupiter in Capricorn, retrograde. I'm not obeying any rules. You won't tell me what to do. Well, there's a good part of that, but there's also a wasted energy when you're just using more petrol or gas to get to the next set of traffic lights. And I saw that when I was in Britain last year, before Brexit or after Brexit, and before there was a decision to leave. Let's say there was still lots of indecision. When we feel powerless to change decisions that other people are making on our behalf, then there's more road rage, there's more rage, there's more striking out, there's more domestic abuse, there's more, you understand? It's like we're looking for, if I feel powerless in a situation, I need to strike out against those who are more powerless than I am. And that's been the mechanism, unfortunately, of abuse for thousands of years. I feel not good enough, so let me strike out on someone else. And it's awful. It's awful. It is solar plexus based. It's base chakra based. It's, I don't feel secure. I don't feel powerful. I feel inadequate. So let me strike out at someone who's more inadequate than I am. It's just not good. So one of the things we're needing now is for helping people to become more in their power, more valuable. And this is why I talked about staying centered in this eye of the storm, because flying off into the storm actually creates more powerlessness. If you think of yourself being in a hurricane, you're literally thrown about, or a tornado. When you're in the eye of the storm, you can watch what's happening, but not get affected by it. And what is happening is people are being literally picked up by this tornado, this grief that's happening, this sense of inadequacy, this sense of powerlessness. And they're literally, I could say, spitting at everybody they see or firing out with energy just because that's the one thing they can do. Are you following this? Have you seen this yourself? I'm seeing, watching on our blog site called Nextdoor, just people's overreaction to a situation. And I kind of want to say, isn't it a great thing you've got choice? And sometimes we forget that we have choice. We have choice how we perceive a situation. We have choice of what we do with the situation. And you might say, no, I don't have choice. Well, everybody has choice. Now, I'm saying that because even in concentration camps, when you listen to those who speak, you have choices to how you want to deal with the next moment, the next second. A Man in Search of Himself, if you've never read that book, it's a wonderful book by Franklin. And it really says, yes, even in the most dire circumstances, we do have choice. And there's no doubt that the people who make choices, make healthy choices, have a healthy immune system. That makes sense? So that what I've always been saying about this immune system is it's about you making healthy choices. That's what an immune system is. It's about feeling that you have those choices. And that when we feel that we are out of touch with we can't do things, our immune system drops. I've spoken about how as soon as we take someone into a hospital and we take away their computer and their phone and everything, we say, you're just in this bed. We literally make them powerless and their immune system drops right away. Powerlessness, helplessness is the quickest way of lowering the immune response. And we can do it also by disempowering the body. In other words, some of the drugs that we use are to suppress a symptom But ultimately, it literally is telling the body, we are taking away your mechanism for homeostasis, for balancing yourself again. So once it's almost like, well, I need that drug because my body couldn't do this. Now, I'm not suggesting that, you don't need insulin if you're diabetic, etc. But often the need for insulin, the need for these drugs have come from a feeling of helplessness. And unfortunately, the drugs then exacerbate that. We'll take over control of your body. We know what's best for it. And all of a sudden, your body is not in control. It can't balance its hormones. And so we're actually causing an ecological disturbance, an ecological imbalance. And the body, just like the soil, can't come back into balance with itself. And this I'm particularly concerned about is where we're using certain drugs that have allowed this virus to take hold. One of the drugs are what we call ACE inhibitors, or ARB, often used for diabetes, heart disease, respiratory disease, and then there's also statins. Both of these types of drugs are literally clamping down on something the body normally does. And we go, wow, isn't that fantastic? You've lowered your blood pressure. But the mechanism that actually kept your blood pressure naturally balanced, you've now said, we're not going to let you do that anymore. We're going to take control. And guess what? That means that your body now doesn't know how to balance its own blood pressure, which we need. Blood pressure is important. Without any blood pressure, you would not pump that blood around your system. Or the statins are lowering the cholesterol where we actually need cholesterol. So a lot of these drugs are actually causing another system to shut off, like steroids. Steroids are great short term. Long term, however, they suppress the immune system. And steroids are what we call, they're cortisol, they're part of the cortisol system. So we know we must never take someone off steroids quickly because their own adrenal glands don't know how to make cortisol to be able to help them to deal with stress. So we're literally taking over the normal homeostasis of the body, the normal way the body deals with things. And I'm seeing that also in drugs that we take, which are opioid drugs, different painkillers. We don't have an opioid crisis just because of, we have an opioid crisis because heroin, etc., are coming into our system. Fentanyl, what terrible drugs. But the crisis is not because of the smugglers. The crisis is because people are taking the drugs. The need for these drugs is causing people to be the drug smugglers, the drug companies. So we're letting other people drug us. We're letting other people take over our body. And at the same time, and why am I saying all of this? And I include cannabis and marijuana. I am all for someone having something relax them. But if we're saying I cannot work or I cannot live in my life without this, we're addicted. We're lost. We are totally addicted to something external to us solving our needs. And that might be the internet. It might be listening to some program. I need to listen to this. I need to have my internet. I need to have my, and what we're doing is giving away our power. And I want to just come back to the center. Why am I speaking about that? Because that centeredness is what we're doing as we're following the moon. We're following a rhythm that is normal for us. We're resetting our rhythms. That's what I called this whole time. Coming back in tune with your rhythms. And the rhythms can be, as I say, well, let's say the normal rhythm may be what food you take in. Remember, rhythm is ritual. So what are the rituals which bring you back into rhythm with yourself? So it might be having a cup of coffee. But is that second or third or fourth cup of coffee taking you away from your center? Taking you away from your calmness or whatever it is you take a cup of coffee for. Do you understand me? So when is it an addiction and when is it some part of your own ritual that helps you to stay centered, stay calm? And you know it's an addiction because you can't stay away from it, certainly for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I always used to say, if you want to know if you're addicted to something, stop doing it for 2 weeks. I might say, stop doing it for 3 days. Can you stop something, or are you addicted to having that process? If you're addicted, you're not centered in the eye of the storm. You're being pulled out. And this, more than any time in our life, is one for us to question, what is my center? How do I stay in it? And what is, again, true to me and what is not? The healthy immune system. What nurtures me, what doesn't? So asking ourselves, where am I addicted to things? What pulls me out of my center? What takes me into that storm, that hurricane? And one of the things, as I say, is feelings of powerlessness, is feeling of helplessness. So we may, take alcohol, we may take a drug, we may go out racing in our cars to feel that we're in power again, but actually what it's doing is pulling us away from our center. So what brings you back? And what is the state you enjoy being in? What's that state? I've talked about this before, but what's that state you feel when you go, I feel in control of myself and yet I'm not controlling others? That would be another way. So when we have to argue with others, whether they're 6 feet apart or not, or whether they should be or shouldn't be wearing a mask, we're losing ourselves in other people's stuff, in other people's business. This is back to discernment. Can we bring ourselves back to our center? What matters to us, you see? Where am I allowing something else that someone else is thinking or saying mattering to me more than actually holding my center? And that's not easy, I will tell you. I'm very aware just this week, it's been interesting to see how I am taken out of my center, taken into the storm of someone else's emotional field. And that storm of emotional field can be just chatting, someone who wants to hold you in their conversation. Let me keep chatting to you and keeping you in my storm, my emotional storm. Or it can be someone who's challenging me, on something I've said or done. And again, that's their drama. They're perceiving things through their lens. And really, what they're not doing is wanting an answer. They're wanting to engage me in their storm, like racing me down a road, or finding a way of just of somehow feeling that if I'm engaged in their storm, then that makes them more powerful. It's like stealing energy. It's a power game. So this may be happening at home. It may be happening with your family. It might be happening the more we get out. But I'm suggesting that this whole next phase of what's going on with us in the virus is all about this blame and anger, this feeling of insecurity. That's what happens. If I can blame someone else, then I don't feel so bad. Or if I can be angry at someone else, then again, I don't have to feel it. Or if I feel guilty, then I feel, well, there we are, I'm doing my best I can. And the next stages of grief after that are often bargaining and praying. So in the sense of, oh God, please, will you stop this so we can all be well again? And it's when we bargain in that way, when there's grief, we're literally trying to say to a God, take us back to where we were. Just give me that normal life again. And that's not going to happen. So we say, well, if I pray hard enough, will you give me a job I want? So it's about saying, in this chaos that's happening, in this storm, we're trying to control the outcome. And as I've always learned, that when I think I know what the next stage of my life is, God laughs. It really is a case of actually anything that I can think is already inadequate, because my thinking is only linked to what's already happened. It's only my heart, remember, that can take me to where I need to be. So when I stay in that calmness, when I connect to my heart, when I connect to the essential me or to the essence of Chris, then what I find is I attract into my life those things that will manifest or help me to manifest all that I am. But when I'm flying around in the storm and I'm being pulled into other people's storms, then I am not allowing myself to feel that centeredness. That makes sense? So after the bargaining and the praying and which is really trying to say, this is what the outcome I want to happen, the next stage is depression. I mean, confusion, often disorientation, which many of us are in already, but in the sense of, it can often be like, okay, I've tried all my tricks. I've been angry at myself. I've been angry at others. I've blamed myself. I've prayed. I've bargained. I have nothing left. And maybe you've been in those places. I remember years and years ago, and because I've always had a connection to the spirit world, saying, almost, I think I was probably crying. And it was like, I give up. I can't do this. I give up. Which in other words, I stopped trying. And I could almost feel the spirit world going, yes, she's giving up. Yay. Hallelujah, chorus. In other words, where are we trying so hard to get things right, to put things right, when there is no wrong and there is no where to go? When do we need to just release? Sometimes it is into a puddle of crying. Maybe it is into a puddle of, I don't know what to do next. But I can tell you, when you say, I don't know what to do next, you are never alone. But because we have free will, the spirit world cannot move in until we say, help me, I don't know what to do. Are you hearing me? Because this is the hardest part, to accept that we feel that we are lost. Now, you might say, but isn't that depression? I'll never get out of it. No, not really. Depression is really when we are lost in something. We're lost in emotions. When we say, I give up, there's nothing. We've got nothing more. It might feel like depression, but often it's about a release. It's like, okay, I'm not a caterpillar anymore. I'm not a butterfly. I just release into that cocoon. And it's then that the spirit world comes around you. It's then that you feel the arms of love. It's then that you say, I nest into something bigger than myself, and I allow myself to be carried to the next step. Giving up, you have to break down to break through. Giving up is not surrendering to and saying, I have nothing. It's saying, everything that I thought was about, life was about, I give up. I don't know what it's about. Can that make a difference? It's going from a place of, I thought this is where my life was going. But when you give up, it's not about nothingness. It's like you falling into that ocean of possibilities and saying, okay, I don't know where I'm going, but I know where I'm not going anymore. I know what's not going to happen anymore. And that doesn't mean that something isn't going to come from the past and be part of your future, but you're not holding on to your old relationship to that. You're breaking down your old relationship to what you've experienced in the past and allowing it to literally form a new relationship. That makes sense? It's like sometimes we have to let go of everything for everything around us to reorganize itself. We may still have the same bits in our life, the same family in our life, but we're having a different relationship to them. We're having a different relationship to the same bits of us that have always existed, but now we're having a different type of relationship with them. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I know that Neil Donald Walsh talked about years ago, when he talked about the looking at he was channeling God, but he spoke about us being a dot on a wall, and that we only knew ourselves in relation to who we were when we put another dot on a wall. So we then said, oh, I know who I am because I'm this dot in relationship to this dot. I'm a red dot, that's a blue dot. I have a relationship with that blue dot. Now I know who I am. Okay? And then I put relationships all over the place, all different dots. And as you've heard me say, all those different dots are a part of me, but still I relate to those different parts of me so I know who I am. What's happening now is all those dots are being taken off the wall. They're all being put back in the box. So there's only you, only the red dot remains. And that's what we're grieving over, because we thought we knew who we were in relationship to the other dots. That makes sense? And if we never ever found that dot before, if we've never known who we are, if we've never tapped into that candle that is us, then when the dots start to fall away, we get more panicky. And as I'm speaking to you, that makes me know that that's the time when others will try and draw you into their drama, their relationship with you, because that gives them some security. That's what I'm intuiting now as I'm saying this, is that at this moment, if you hold yourself steady, you will meet up with those who have been maybe part of your dot, the other dots, but because they're feeling less steady, there's a need to pull you in so they know who they are. I hope that makes sense. So being able to stay calm, stay in your center, not engaged with other people's dramas or other people's fears, is a really healthy thing to do. And as I say, all these dots are going back into the ocean of possibilities, be cleaned up. And the same dots may come back to you, but maybe in a different format. And that's really what we want. So we're breaking ourselves down, coming back to the initial dot, allowing what we call relationship to fall away. Again, I'm not saying your relationships are going to collapse, but I'm saying the way you have seen yourself in relationship to someone else is changing or may change. So be aware of that. It's not the person you're in relationship with, it's the part of them that you relate to. And you may say, actually, I'm going to show you a different part of me that I want you to relate to, not the old me. And for myself, I've been very aware that because I've been in a role for a long time, being a doctor, a teacher, etc., sometimes I fall into that role of how you perceive you want me to be. And what I'm very aware in this balsamic moon is how I'm saying is, no, that's your perception. It's been what I've fed into, where we've related through that role that I played. But I'm now not going to relate to you in that way anymore. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to be a teacher, etc., but I'm not putting my emphasis on that's who I am. Does that make sense to you? So coming back, I am Christine. This is who you see I am. Whether you listen to my words, whether you have a session with me, I still will give that same way of relating to you, but not in a role that I'm completed with. So what roles are you completed in? What way in which you have structured yourself in different relationships are you willing to release at the dark moon when we get there? Where are you stepping away from a role? And I feel that that's what I want to leave you with today. It's not necessarily something that we do a meditation on. I'll do a meditation next time, but for this time, it's looking at the roles, and it's not so much, how can I put it? It's more how you relate in that role. How do you meet someone in a role? How do your two dots connect? And are you willing to dissolve that way in which you've related, that role you've played in a life, and allow yourself to fall back into the ocean of possibilities? And if there's a new role or a new way in which you wish to relate to that person, so be it. Put your dots back up on the wall again. But you may also find that when you take that role away, when you say, I no longer am going to relate to you through that particular persona that you know me by, you may realize there's no relationship there. And this is, I feel that we're coming to an awareness of, is how do we relate to others, but more importantly, where have I played a part? Where have I lived a certain way that no longer is in harmony with my fullness of who I am? To complete, I saying is there another piece of you? And again, we're going to do this when on the next phase within the dark moon. Is there a part of you that you've been keeping suppressed because of this overriding rule or role that you play? The nice person, the pleaser, the helpful one, I never get into conflict. What is the role that you keep playing that in a balsamic moon is no longer working? Because the balsamic moon is recognizing that you are a unique individual. Every one of us has come onto this planet at this time to bring our uniqueness, often from other places in the universe. We are star beings. We don't fit in. So I ask you during this balsamic moon time, where am I staying small to fit in? Where am I playing a role? Where am I playing along? But now I'm no longer willing to do that because I am a unique individual. So what we're going to use and put into the so-called fire at the dark moon is the masks, the masks I've been wearing, or the clothes I've been wearing that are keeping me small, keeping me appearing as if I relate to you, but I truly don't. Because if you could see who I am very different. There we go. So the grieving process is allowing us to release those parts of ourselves that no longer resonate with the wholeness of who we are. Be aware not to get caught up into other people's storm, because that's their confusion, their fear of diving deep and finding who they are. Stay in your center. And until next time, we will meet again in that dark moon to do the ceremony of releasing, connecting to the fullness of who we are, and the inspiration to give birth. Until then, take care. Much love. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and now playing on iHeartRadio. You can also watch the archive podcasts on YouTube. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, including her newest Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.